rounds 3 and 4 here at Watkins Glen this weekend. When you look over the countryside, the greenery, the hills, the vineyards in the background, you might think that we were back in Monterey, California, where the season started, but that is not the case. The Finger Lakes area of New York, where they have streets. Watkins Glen, New York in 1948, then moved to a Tipperary circuit in 1953, and now here we are. Since 1992, the racetrack has looked like this, 3.45 miles in length and all kinds of elevation changes. That means all kinds of challenges. Great passing zone, difficult braking zone though, down into the turn one, then flying close to 170 miles an hour for these Lamborghinis as they head to the inner loop, and then down through the boot. Some great passing zones. The toe of the boot, the hairpin here, brings you up the hill. There's a look at the bus stop that was added in 1992. That's the inner loop. It cut down the straightaway speeds into that big carousel at the end of the back straightaway, and this racetrack has everything in the world that you could want, and sometimes things you don't want. Welcome everyone. I'm Brian Till along with Jeremy Shaw. We'll call all the action for you today. And Jeremy, Lamborghinis at Watkins Glen, it doesn't get any better than this.
It does not, Brian. A fantastic field of cars here, the largest field ever in Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America. Unfortunately, we lost a couple after the qualifying sessions this morning. We had incidents for both Dan Decker and for Tom Tate. Their cars will not be repaired for today. Tom Tate certainly is done for the weekend. Dan Decker, though, it was just a rear corner on that car, but there wasn't enough time between qualifying and the race to get it prepared. But it should be out tomorrow. So both drivers are just fine, and they'll be watching this race with great eager anticipation to get ready for tomorrow's race.
We talk about these cars on this racetrack too, Jeremy, and the speeds at which they traverse not only the corners down the back straightaway, well over 600 horsepower, over 400 foot-pounds of torque, traction control, anti-lock brakes, and really not a lot of aerodynamics. I mean, obviously, this Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2 is an aerodynamic car, but when you compare it to GT3 cars that run in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, the Lamborghinis there have a lot more downforce, and consequently, these here in Lamborghini Super Trofeo considerably faster down the straightaways.
These cars are super fast. Yeah, I mean, they do over 150 miles an hour before they reach the crest of the hill, the S's there. I mean, these cars are really, really fast. A couple of drivers who are in this race will also be taking part in the Salem 6 Hours of the Glen, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship race on Sunday in GT3 Lamborghinis. And these cars are carrying about 15 miles an hour more as they head into the inner loop. So, yeah, they are a challenge.
Well over 170 miles an hour, just cresting 170 miles an hour as you get on the brakes and only go down 2 gears for the inner loop, so you're not slowing down all that much from 170 to just under 100 miles an hour there to get it through the inner loop. We talk about the driver aids as well. Traction control, 9 different positions, 6-speed transmission, the ABS, the anti-lock braking system, 12 different positions there, so a very complicated car, and once again, 4 different classes, not of car, Jeremy, but of driver competing today.
That's right. We have the pro drivers, we've got the pro AM class, we have AM drivers, we also have the LB Cup, which is basically for drivers who had very little racing experience, and there's a full gamut of 8 cars in the LB Cup. We lost one of them, Dan Decker, won't be racing this afternoon, but yeah, full field. So we've got 6 pros, 11 pro AMs, 9 AMs, and 8 LB Cups, so a total of 34 starting this race. It's going to be a handful. It's going to be a really fun race, and you know, we've had 2 practice sessions yesterday, qualifying this morning. Unfortunately, both of the qualifying sessions, there's 15 minutes of qualifying to set the grid for each of the 2 races this weekend. Both of them were interrupted by red flags. So the second race, actually, no one got a flying, only half a dozen cars got a flying lap in. So the grid for tomorrow's race will be set by practice times from yesterday in free practice 2.
Well, and if you're a fan of Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and why wouldn't you be, you might see something a little different right now, and that is on these reconnaissance laps, these pace laps. The clock has now started as they come across the line the second time. It's a little different for this weekend, an action-packed, crammed schedule here at Watkins Glen. And the promoters always want to give these drivers an opportunity to get their tires up to temperature and pressure. There's typically a reconnaissance lap and then a single pace lap with a trip down pit lane in between the two. Really not time for that today, so they're going to give them 2 laps behind the safety car as they go out. But the clock starts on the second lap, so a little different than what you would normally see. The clock now running. We will have a side-by-side start when they come by the line the next time, but there'll be a couple of minutes off the clock because it's going to take probably 3.5 minutes or so for this lap behind the safety car. The clock is running.
It will. So we have a run down the starting order for this race. So it's 36th or 34th on the grid will be AJ Muss, who's an AM contender for 47 motorsports. He actually qualified on the pole in the AM class, up inside the top 10, but unfortunately after qualifying, that car was found out of technical specification. Rear wheel camber basically was more than is allowed this weekend, so he's been put all the way to the back in car number 66. Alongside him on the grid would be Chris Tasker in car number 45. Row 16, Ron Atapatu in car number 24 for Ansa Motorsports, alongside Raymond Davudi in car number 11. Row 15 on the grid is Tiger Tara in car number 17. Alex Lima from Brazil making his debut this weekend in the number 07 car. Ophir Levy will start in the 28th position alongside Fred Roberts in car number 89. Ahead of them on the grid is Mark Wilgus in car number 50 and Jade Logan in car number 70. Row 12 is John Hirschberg in car number 86 and Graham Doyle in car number 10. Row 11, Jeff Courtney in car number 99, and then the LB Cup pole sitter for the first time, Rodrigo Valles, who did a super job for TR3 Racing, the fastest of the LB Cup contenders in 21st on the grid. 10th row, Todd Coleman making his debut this weekend in Lamborghini Super Trofeo in car number 96, alongside Paul Nemshoff in car number 41. Row 9, Mo Dadka in car number 47 and Slade Stewart in car number 14. Row 8 is Dominic Starkweather in car number 12 and Anthony McIntosh in car number 69. Row 7, Carter Williams, number 22, and Nico Riga making his return to the series this weekend in car number 20. Row 6 is Tyler Hoffman in the car number 9, second fastest of the AM contenders. Alongside him, Johannes van Overbeek in car number 68. On the AM pole, 10th position overall, David Starr in car number 48 for Precision Performance Motorsports. Alongside him, one of the Pro-Am contenders is Nate Stacey in car number 8. 2 pro cars on row 4 of the grid, Jake Walker in car number 77 and Nico Jamin from France in car number 30. Row 3 is 2 Pro-Am cars, Luke Berkeley in car number 42 and Joel Miller in car number 55. 2 pro cars on row 2 is Kyle Marcelli and Ryan Norman, and on the front row of the grid, the Pro-Am pole sitter John Capestro Dubets, and on the pole position for the first time in his career overall, Gianni Torino in car number 88 for TR3 Racing.
A great field. They are lined up, ready to go. Preston Buckley in the starter stand looks over the field, throws the green, racing at Watkins Glen and Lamborghini Super Trofeo. Pro car on the pole outside the green and black. That's the pole sitter in the Pro-Am entry. You got to know who you're racing with. You're after your own championship. But up here right now in front with Pro and Pro-Am, you've got to get through this first lap, let things get settled down, and then you can get down to business.
And a good start there from the pole sitter in that Italian tricolore colored car, the red, white and green, Gianni Torino. He's originally from South Africa, but his father is very proudly from Italy, and it's the Italian colors he carries on that TR3 car. Super start from him. He's won races before, sharing with Marco Spinelli last season, but this is his first time on the pole position himself and leading at the front and doing so very impressively.
Very impressive. And Jeremy, we've watched young Gianni Torino for the last several years. He just gets better and better, faster in the car, and I think better inside the helmet. He's thinking better. He's more mature. He's a better racer these days, and you see it right now on those cold hand-cooked tires, able to pull out a lead right now, and it's beginning to stretch out just a little bit over JCD, John Capestro Dubets.
He's got a great head on his shoulders as Gianni. He's a really focused young man. He was there late yesterday evening working on the cars, helping the crew get him ready for today's qualifying and then the race today. Really impressive young man. He's for somebody that young, just 19 years of age, he's got a really good head on his shoulders. What a great first lap this has been for Gianni. He's already pulled away from John Capestro-Dubets, who's doing a lot of racing in a lot of different series. And Torino, he's got, 15 car lengths between himself and the second place car coming up towards the completion of the first racing lap.
Coming to look at the start line for the first time, as you said it, first lap in the books. Torino has led it, I should say, and then John Capestro-Dubets. Kyle Marcelli now up to third after qualifying fourth. And after such a perfect weekend at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for the number one car, were you a little bit surprised at the lack of pace? And I don't want to really call it lack of pace. We're only talking tenths of seconds, Jeremy, but were you surprised by the number one car in qualifying?
Yeah, a little bit. They've been pretty conservative this weekend. They've got a good lead. They won both races, the first two races of the championship this season at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca out on the west coast. So they come here already with a pretty handy points lead. So, they're just being cautious. There's been a few concerns this weekend, and they want to make sure that everything is under control. They don't need to win every race, and plus it's a long race. It's 50 minutes. They know they've got two fast drivers in Kyle Marcelli and from Costa Rica, Danny Formal, who will be driving the second half of this race. So, they've got good consistent pace between the two of them. And so for Kyle Marcelli, early stages, just kind of bide his time, keep his position, and hand the car over to Danny, who will see what he can do in the final stages.
I think the big thing at Watkins Glen this weekend for every driver in Lamborghini Super Trofeo is that new tire that they're all running on. So it's really kind of a new ball game for all of them. It's one of those where you know the car and what it likes around this racetrack, but you don't know that Hankook tire all that well. This racetrack known for being really, really hard on the tires, and it's one of the reasons that in tech there is a spec for the amount of negative camber that you can run. That's how the tires lean in at the top, hopefully not out at the top, usually in at the top, meaning negative camber. If you run too much negative camber, you get on that inside shoulder of the tire, heats it up a lot. So I think maybe for Kyle Marcelli, you pointed to it, Jeremy.
Yango, different from a taxi. Install it now.
You've got the best deals on delicious food. Order now.
Food Panda?
Be smart with the car. More importantly, be smart with the tire, because you don't know that much about it, and you've got to hand your teammate who's going to run to the checkered flag a good car that'll be stable all the way to the end.
Well, that's the key here, of course, and there's certainly the Wayne Taylor race team with Andretti Autosport camp. They're running a handful of cars here, so they know what these cars take. The car that's fastest in AM this morning, AJ Muss for 47 Motorsports, he was really quick. His teammates Joel Miller and Jake Walker were both fast as well. Not all of those cars, of course, went through tech, so you would think that all three 47 Motorsports cars were running the same specifications in terms of the setup going into qualifying. The other two cars weren't teched, but only one of them was, and that was the car that was ultimately thrown out and put in the back. So I'm sure that team has gone back to the drawing board to make sure all the cars are properly spec for this race with the right camber angles on those tires, because certainly running more camber is going to give you a better feel for the driver and more grip through the corners as well, but it also takes a lot more out of the tires, and that is why that camber restriction was brought in for this race weekend here at Watkins Glen International.
Gianno Torino leads overall. John Capestro-Dubets runs in second on the racetrack, but first in the Pro-Am class. He and his teammate, championship leaders in Pro-Am, and then David Staub back in the Am category, runs 10th overall, but leads in Am. And Rodrigo Valles in LB Cup aboard the number 34 leads in that class. 4 different classes of drivers, as we said, and the reason that we point to drivers is because they all drive the exact same Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2, and that is unique, I think, in motorsports, Jeremy, where the different classes, the different experience levels, all drive the same car. You know, it's one of those things that I think it really gives you as a driver a measuring stick. You're new, you want to come up, you want to improve. Well, guess what? The guy that's winning the pro races is running the exact same car you are. You've got something to measure from.
Yeah, I completely agree, and you know, it's one of the cool things about this series, and there's drivers of all ages here, of all levels of experience as well, and with there's so many teams, and having teammates to compare notes with after each session, you know, everybody can learn. So it's a tremendous series. It's really grown in stature and in demand over the last few years. We've got huge fields this season. 36 cars came here to start the weekend, and there's at least 2 or 3 more, I gather, that we could be seeing over the next couple of race weekends. So it's a series that's on the rise. It's extremely popular and getting more so.
Extremely popular worldwide. 3 different worldwide Lamborghini Super Trofeo championships, and as you said, it continues to grow. The lead continues to grow for Gianno Torino out in front. Meanwhile, behind, things have settled down, and I think this is part of that unknown about this new tire here at Watkins Glen. You're going to be smart. You're going to take care of it. You've got to have something to hand over to your teammate. This racetrack so fast, we talked about it, well over 130 miles an hour from the time you enter turn 2 and climb the S's. You're over 150 miles an hour on the way out. Down at the end of the back straightaway, 5A and 5B, well over 100 miles an hour. So there are a lot of quick corners on this racetrack, which put serious demand on the tires here. So you've got to be smart and hand your teammate a car to run to the checkered flag with. Luke Berkeley aboard that purple Lamborghini as they head up through the S's and on to the back straightaway. It runs 3rd in Pro-Am.
Yeah, that's the key here, is you know, looking after the tires and making sure everything is in good shape for the end of the race here. We've still got 38 minutes remaining. It'll be another 8 minutes before the pit stop window opens. Everybody will have to make a mandatory pit stop, and there's a minimum time that the cars have to spend on pit lane, and that time is measured as the cars come into pit lane to the time they exit pit lane and get back onto the racetrack. And that minimum time for the races this weekend is 120 seconds for the cars that have 2 drivers that will be sharing during this race. For the singleton drivers, the solo drivers, their sort will be 3 seconds more, a minimum of 3 seconds more, so 123 seconds for them. They've given them a little bit more time than usual here this weekend in order for each of the teams to measure the tyre pressures on the cars during the pit stop to make sure that they are, again, within comfortable bounds as far as the tyre company is concerned. And I think that's a really sensible move that has been made by the officials this weekend. So the pit stop's been a little bit longer than usual, but it's the same for everybody.
Watch the leader come down the front straightaway. You can identify the different classes that are out there by that little triangle on the window banner, upper right.